All right, let's dive right into this. We are about to unpack one of the most fascinating ancient texts that sits just outside the traditional Bible. And boy, does it raise a question that gets to the very heart of how we think about God.
I mean, just picture this for a second. You have this vision of God who is so transcendent, so overwhelmingly majestic, that he's presiding over this massive celestial courtroom. He's surrounded by fire and legions upon legions of angels, getting ready to hand down one final, absolute judgment.
And then you have the God that many of us are more familiar with from the Hebrew Bible. A God who, walks in the garden, speaks directly with prophets, makes these deeply personal promises, and gets right into the messy day-to-day drama of human history.
So that's the big puzzle we're tackling today. Are we looking at two completely different gods here? Or are we just seeing the same God but viewed through two radically different lenses? Let's dig in and find out.
Okay, so our investigation starts with the Book of Enoch and its really unique, really powerful vision of God. And to get it, we first have to understand what this book even is.
So first things first, the Book of Enoch isn't just one book. It's actually a collection of texts that come from what we call the Second Temple period. Now, it's not in the standard Jewish or Christian Bibles, but it was hugely influential back in the day. It presents itself as a series of secret revelations given to the ancient patriarch Enoch, Noah's great-grandfather. And check out this number, 102. This is so important because in a major section of Enoch, called the Book of Parables, God isn't just called God or Lord. No, he's called the Lord of Spirits, a whopping 102 times. That name alone immediately sets a different tone, right? It frames him as this remote, transcendent spiritual authority over all the forces in the cosmos. And this Lord of Spirits? Well, the descriptions are just breathtaking. He's not just a king, he's a cosmic emperor on a throne of fire, with literally thousands upon thousands of angels serving him. And the entire focus of this portrayal? It's on his role as the ultimate judge in this grand heavenly court, getting ready for one final, sweeping verdict on everything and everyone.
And this diagram, this really gives you a sense of the sheer scale of Enoch's vision. Just to get near God, Enoch has to travel up through 10 different heavens. He passes through realms where angels control the weather, a dark prison for rebel angels, even the locations of paradise and hell. It's not until he gets all the way to the 10th heaven that he can actually enter the divine courtroom. This isn't a guy you can just have a casual chat with. He's at the very top of a vast cosmic hierarchy.
So, if you want to boil it all down to one core idea, this powerful quote pretty much nails it. Fun fact, this verse is actually quoted in the New Testament book of Jude. The message is just crystal clear and incredibly intense. God is coming, he's bringing a massive army of holy angels, and the purpose is to execute a final, definitive judgment. It's all about overwhelming power and absolute justice.
Okay, so let's shift gears. Now we're going to look at our point of contrast, the more familiar portrayal of God that we find all through the Hebrew Bible, also known as the Tanakh.
And here, the picture just changes completely. The main way God interacts is through covenants, these personal, binding agreements he makes with people like Abraham and Moses, and with the entire nation of Israel. He speaks directly to the prophets, his justice is almost always balanced with calls for mercy and repentance, and he is a constant, active character in the human story. The whole tone feels so much more relational, even while he's still, of course, the ultimate judge.
So, we have these two portrayals that feel very, very different. On one hand, a remote, cosmic judge. On the other, a hands-on covenant partner. How on earth do we make sense of this? Well, the secret is understanding the type of literature we're reading and the historical moment that created the Book of Enoch.
See, the Book of Enoch is a perfect example of what scholars call apocalyptic literature. This was a style of writing that became really popular when the Jewish people were facing intense crisis and persecution. The whole point was to pull back the curtain on reality, to use these huge symbolic visions to say, hey, I know things look bad on earth, but don't worry, God has a cosmic plan, and in the end, he will bring ultimate justice and destroy evil.
And once you get that, it all starts to click into place. The writers of Enoch probably weren't trying to invent a new God. They were taking certain attributes of the biblical God, his absolute power, his perfect justice, his total sovereignty, and cranking them up to 11 through this apocalyptic lens, all to give hope to a people who are suffering. And this is where a really fascinating theological idea from that era comes into play, the concept of two powers in heaven.
In Enoch and other books like Daniel, you see this picture of the supreme God, the Ancient of Days or Lord of Spirits, and then a second divine figure, often called the Son of Man, who acts as his primary agent to carry out judgment.
And that is why the whole cosmic courtroom scene exists. This two powers idea was a way for them to talk about God's supreme untouchable authority, that's the Lord of Spirits, while also picturing a powerful divine agent, the Son of Man, who could actually sit on a throne and get his hands dirty, so to speak, carrying out that final judgment on God's behalf.
So let's bring it all home. We're going to put these two portrayals side by side one last time, but now we have the apocalyptic key to understand them.
Looking at this table, the differences in emphasis are just so clear. When it comes to justice, Enoch is all about that intense, final apocalyptic judgment. The Hebrew Bible, though, balances judgment with mercy and restoration. For relationship, Enoch's God is more distant, interacting through visions, while the Bible's is direct and covenantal. And finally, authority in Enoch is this huge expanded heavenly court with a second power, a concept that's just way less detailed in the rest of the Hebrew Bible.
So here is the bottom line. The Book of Enoch isn't showing us a different God. It's showing us the same God, but through a lens that zooms in and magnifies his role as the ultimate bringer of justice. It's a heightened focus on cosmic order and that final, unavoidable moment of accountability.
And that leaves us with one last really interesting question to chew on. Maybe the whole time we've been asking the wrong thing. Instead of asking, is this a different God? Maybe the real question is, what was going on in the world that made a whole generation of people need to see God less as a partner and more as the ultimate all-powerful cosmic